In November 1830, Poland was partitioned by three powerful forces. Driven to get their autonomy back, the people of Poland rebelled against Russia. Outnumbered and undergunned, the people stood for their freedom. Why did it occur? Greetings all, getting good at this now. Never let anyone tell you that if you start something and keep rolling, that you can be stopped. Welcome to the Rebellion Rolls. Today's film highlights that no matter how strong or hopeless the situation may be, we can always find the strength to continue. As Bruce Lee said, no one is defeated until they accept it as a state of mind. Now we're in the fourth episode. My intention is for this series to represent an attempt at creation of media resemblant of an earlier age, where education was at least equal with entertainment. Further series on slick heists and impossible raids will be more entertainment in nature. I want to honour these events. My hope is that you appreciate that and enjoy the material. Poland rose because it was tired of being pushed around by a nation that extracted its wealth and oppressed its people. Trying to be neutral, having opinions, doesn't mean people always want to hear them. Sometimes it's unavoidable. I respect Poland, as its people have always had to struggle. You can pick the time frame. I'm referring to the last few hundred years. They know what it means to have their back against the wall, and yet they still have a spirit, a natural cohesion, and a pride that can only be respected. Poland had been partitioned in the previous century by the Russian, Prussian, and Austrian empires, a move that wiped Poland and Lithuania off the map for over a century. The Kingdom of Poland had been established in 1815 under the Treaty of Vienna, constitutional monarchy in personal union with Russia, which meant that they shared the same monarch, with boundaries and laws being separate. Well, so it was meant to be on paper. It's fascinating to me how this plays out, as this playbook is replicated all over. The union increasingly became fractured due to Russia increasing censorship, curtailing civil liberties, and ratcheting up the political repression. Wonder, can we see any parallels in modern countries? Poles and Russians couldn't accept the term Russian Poland. To Russia, Poland ceased to exist, and to the Poles, Poland would always be Polish. Russian partition appears to be landed upon as acceptable. This parceling up of Polish and Lithuanian land, as they were the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, ramped up slowly, starting in 1667. An uprising in 1794 resulted in the massacre of up to 20,000 civilians in the Praga district of Warsaw. This showed that disharmony had grown by degrees over time. One woman for every 30 Russian soldiers stationed at a garrison. The Russification policies were brutal. The Polish language was denigrated, losing its official status. Books were torched, churches consumed by arson, and priests knocked off. Education wasn't allowed in the Poles language, and the only young age schools were deliberately underfunded. Warsaw had the feel of a military stronghold, with 12 Russian garrisons, Russian stores and clubs. Please take a moment to subscribe. It's critical for small channels to grow, such as ours. Thank you. Polish stores where Russian wasn't spoken were usually denied a license. Hunger and poverty being rampant for the city's citizens, increasing numbers of women were forced to work for Russian military brothels, hence the ratio of women to soldiers above. The cost being less than a third of a ruble, abuse was prevalent. All military brothels were required to give patriotic duty, with one free visit per soldier per week. Where did the catalyst occur? This repression, as well as the wave of liberty caused by the revolutionary movements in Western Europe, pushed people to where only armed resistance would seem viable. Young officers from the Polish Military Academy convening a meeting to discuss their grievances. The keystone issue, similar to the Sepoy Rebellion, was the rumoured deployment of Polish troops to quell the revolutions occurring in France and Belgium, something Tsar Nicholas I later did in the 1848 revolutions, so it appears not unfounded. Led by Peter Wysotsky, him and a group of young cadets had formed a secret patriotic society concerned about the rumours above. Arrest by the Russians, and further constitutional erosion. Operating in cells with oaths of secrecy, the meeting of the 29th of November was the signal to act, belief building that the Russian authorities had caught wind of the plan and were planning to disband units, severing the chance to act. Multi-layered, the plan was to seize weapons, rally Warsaw's garrison before capturing or eliminating the Russian-appointed Grand Duke, Constantine. Maneuvering to Belvedere Palace, they attempted to assassinate or capture him, Constantine narrowly escaping through a rear exit. How did numbers grow so quickly then? Being a planned military conspiracy, the cadets expected senior Polish officers to immediately take charge. They faltered, some senior officers dying after trying to restrain the uprising. Civilians joined the fighting, holding the line. Seizing the Warsaw arsenal, civilians were armed. Swelling numbers of street fighting broke out. I've always been fascinated by this phenomena, how so many people will sit on the fence until a voice or a figure puts their head over the parapet, how this inspires, and the powerful force it generates. In the internal struggle between good and evil, more people are required to do this. The morning after the night before saw Russian forces withdraw from the city. Constantine, possibly hoping for the melting pot to cool, withdrew, instead of immediately storming. Leaving the rebels in control of the city, the pioneers had not expected to invoke a national revolution, instead expecting senior political figures to propel the matter forward. Instead of rallying, Polish leaders feared open conflict with Russia, many secretly still hoping to negotiate. This situation, or lack of it, persisted for the next few days. A provisional government was formed. Adam was a prince, statesman, diplomat and writer. The Polish army was mobilized, tension rising in Warsaw for a clean break from Russia, which led to negotiations with Tsar Nicholas for increased autonomy, ultimately futile, and the expansion of the uprising into Lithuania. Poland had commenced revolution, yet hadn't declared independence yet. This illusion of being able to negotiate with the Tsar collided with the realities of the situation fast. These seemingly delusional leaders believed, or at least hoped, that Russia would restore constitutional guarantees, restore autonomy, and not launch a full-scale invasion. Nicholas shuttered these notions by demanding unconditional submission, Russian forces being ready to invade by early 1831. 25th of January 1831 saw the Polish government formally depose the Tsar as the leader of Poland. This was the point where a declared war of independence began. This 2-month period ensured that the revolution survived its most vulnerable state. The Tsar gave the order, and 115 to 120,000 troops, led by Hans Karl von Diebitsch, invaded Poland in February. An early Polish success at Stołczek, where Polish cavalry under Józef Dwernicki coordinated converging with 2 columns against a stronger Russian cavalry, boosted morale. The Russians routed off the field. Knowing that they could not give battle in open country, Poles traded space for time. A delay in action, Wawr sought to halt the Russians' plans of immediate advance on Warsaw. Wawr saw the Poles pick marshy ground during winter conditions on bad roads leading to Warsaw. The 19th and 20th saw the Poles try to get the Russians to fight piecemeal, try to nullify the Russians' want to rapidly concentrate and disrupt columns. Counterattacking at night and the morning after, the Poles pushed back Russian forces momentarily before they continued. A month later, luring the Russians nearer to their defensive lines, Polish commander Ignacy Prądzyński decided that opposing forces were overextended enough to go on the offensive at Dęba Wielki with the aim of rapidly concentrating and overwhelming isolated segments of the Russian army, attacking Geismar's corps before aid could be given. Intention being to drive Diebitsch back eastward. The speed and ferocity of the combined infantry and cavalry attack collapsed Russian defensive cohesion. Surprise being achieved, meaning a Russian withdrawal after suffering 2,000 to 3,000 casualties. Polish figures being between 400 to 700. News spread that a maneuver victory had been won, strengthening the cause. By the end of March 1831, the uprising had reached its moment of possibility. For the first time, the invading army appeared vulnerable. Initiative briefly passed to Warsaw, yet victory in the field did not translate into further motion. Polish command hesitated. Political leaders feared overextension. Coordination between civil authority and military command remained fragile. Instead of pressing eastward to shatter the Russian army, operations slowed. The opportunity narrowed. In June, events intervened. Cholera spread through both armies. Russian Field Marshal Hans Karl von Diebrich died of the disease. He was replaced by Ivan Paskevich, more methodical than his predecessor. The Russian approach shifting. Rather than gamble on frontal assault, Paskevich maneuvered. Through the summer of 1831, Russian forces moved north of Warsaw, crossing the Vistula and threatening the capital from an unexpected direction. Polish forces were increasingly strained. The Lithuanian Rising was collapsing. Supplies diminished. Political divisions deepened. Time now favoured the empire. In early September, the campaign reached its conclusion. On the 6th and 7th of September 1831, Russian forces assaulted Warsaw's western defences. Fighting was fierce, particularly around Wola. Polish resistance was determined, but it was no longer sufficient. On the 8th of September, Warsaw capitulated. Organised resistance continued briefly, but the outcome was decided. By October, the uprising was over. In its aftermath, the Russian Empire abolished the Polish constitution, dissolved the Polish army, and tightened control over the kingdom. Thousands of officers and intellectuals left the country in exile, the beginning of what will be known as the Great Emigration. The uprising had failed. Yet for a brief moment in the spring of 1831, the result was not inevitable. The Polish army had shown that it could maneuver, concentrate, and win. What it lacked was time and men. Britain saw Poland as a natural ally to France, and sought to keep healthy relations with Russia. Austria and Prussia decided to show a benevolent stance towards Russia, closing the Polish frontiers to arms and supplies. This critical lack of assistance, or allowing of it to reach Poland, hindered them massively. Best of luck for the coming week.